Record. Welcome to those of you who are joining us here today for Financial Advising for Online Coaches. We're super excited to have you, and I think that everybody's mind is going to be blown by the end of this session, because so much heart and so much, like, literally years of growth for all of us has come to culminate in this moment together. And it's like, I really feel like we're making history today, which is super excited. So I'm going to just keep it brief right now. I'm going to be the hostess with the mostest for the morning. My name is Bruria, and I am joined by two of my favorite friends here today. We have Isha and Claire. You will all get to hear their incredible stories, but a little quick background. Isha is a somatic leadership coach and is making a huge impact in the online coaching community. And Claire is a world-class, like, crown jewels, cream of the crop financial advisor. And we're so lucky to have her expertise and her wisdom and her gifts here live today. And we will actually have a Q&A at the end. So if you've always had these burning questions about how does money work, what account is best, of course, some of those questions will be better suited in a private consultation. And we will talk to you guys about that too, because that's something that will be available to all of you here. But there are obviously general questions that many people have about money, about investing, about wealth, about building legacy, about creating a portfolio, diversification. Like, there's so much. And we're really so excited and passionate to be here today with someone who is a licensed and qualified, credible professional who can really bring the real meat and potatoes answers for you today. So I'm going to share just very little bit about myself, super brief, and then I'm going to turn it over to Isha. I also wanted to let you all know kind of just some housekeeping. So you will see we have the chat. If you're watching live, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what's your name, where are you coming from, what are you excited to learn today. You can just kind of think of the chat as like the hype space. So feel free to just throw all your hype in the chat. And we also have a Q&A box. So if you actually have questions, we will be going through a Q&A at the end. So definitely make sure to put your questions there. We want to make sure we see them. So if you put your question in the chat, we might overlook it. So just definitely be sure to put your questions in the Q&A. We anticipate, just so you can plan, we are so grateful and honored and humbled that you took time from your busy life to be here with us today, and we really value your time. And so we want to let you know to anticipate that we'll probably go between 60 to 90 minutes. That will all kind of depend on our flow. We want to be in the flow. We want to let Goddess come through and do whatever feels like needs to be done and say whatever feels like it needs to be said. But we also want to provide a container so approximately how long we'll be here. So if you have to leave early, if you have to leave in the middle, that's okay. We will have a replay. However, if you can stay, I really encourage you to, because you'll get to ask questions at the end and take advantage of the Q&A. And you just can't catch this like juicy live energy in a replay, if you know what I mean. So y'all have us, like all three of us here present with you, giving our full hearts today in this hour and a half. So, we would just love to really cultivate this experience with you together and this sacred space where we're going to talk about busting loose from the money game. So I'm super excited about that. So I'll just share very briefly a little bit about my background. I grew up in a very middle class family. I would say probably lower middle class. And just kind of like the core values that I received in my home were, a lot of pinching pennies, lots of, frugal patterns. And because of that, I developed certain narratives around money, certain beliefs around money, certain mindsets around money, that it was hard to acquire, that there was a certain amount of privilege just in the world that was only available to people who had it. And I was not one of those people. And so that was a very clear message I received throughout my whole life. And because of that, especially since this workshop is for coaches, and coaches are like the dopest people ever, and so personally developed and have done so much inner work. It's like beyond, it's like not a normal cross section of society. And so you all know exactly what I'm talking about, that our mess is our message, right? So the very thing that I felt all this wounding around and, this resistance around was the very thing that I felt really pulled to called to, attracted to reconcile. I wanted to heal this relationship with money. And so, because I am a very powerful manifester, and I absolutely do believe in the manifestational arts, even though I was kind of dogging on them on my social media a little bit yesterday, but I totally still am like a huge proponent of all of that. So I manifested this amazing opportunity to work in this finance firm in Beverly Hills, like 90210 zip code, for real. And I was commuting back and forth every single day, and I was like really doing the thing. And what I found when I had access to an environment like that was I started to feel empowered, and I started to feel like, oh my gosh, these are just like the rules of the game. I just never got taught. I was just never privy to the rules of the game. And now that I know the rules of the game, I'm like, it's not really this big elusive mystery anymore. Like, I get to play the game. This is so fun. How come they don't teach this in school? How come everybody doesn't know this information? And so, over the course of the last, now it's 7.5, 8 years that I've been really actively growing my wealth mindset, but also growing my actual wealth. And so that was kind of, the distinction I made in a reel that I made yesterday, is that the mindset is super important, and you can't overlook the mindset, but we also have to back that up with numbers and accounts and interest and the 3D physical grid that we exist on in this plane, if we really want to see those desires come into fruition. And so I'm just so grateful and fortunate for this information and this education, to feel like I am a financially literate woman in this world, where I really, at one point in time, thought this information was exclusive to some old white men in a boardroom, and it was not available for somebody like me with my background to have access to. So I'm so excited to share all the goodies. I don't want to take any more time, because I am not the main attraction here today at all. I am just the I'm not going to say what I said before. I'm the pregame. I'm the appetizer course. Okay. So I'm without further ado, we're going to go through some amazing stuff with you about, planning and this not just even being something that is individual, although it is an individual journey, but also a bigger vision of like, what are we doing collectively as women, as coaches? Not that this is exclusive to women, but as coaches, as humans on the planet trying to create positive change, how do we not only empower ourselves, but empower our loved ones, empower our communities with financial literacy? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Isha. And Isha and I met about a year ago, and we just connected over so many different topics. It didn't even start here. And then, over the course of time, they asked me, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. I'd love to have a financial strategy done. So I connected Isha with Claire, and Claire put together an amazing strategy for Isha, as you probably all know. And then much to my surprise, they came to me after and were like, hey, can I learn how to do what you do? Because that was awesome. And so that was just like the bright spot and the bonus and the icing on the cake. So now Isha's in business with us, and we are so lucky and happy and grateful to have them and all their just years of experience in the coaching industry and leadership and trauma informed somatic work. And this is the type of individual that I am very happy and grateful to be in business with. So yeah, without further ado, Isha, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Bruria and Claire, for being here. Thank you all for being here. I'm Isha. I'm a trauma psychologist. I'm a certified somatic practitioner and a sovereignty coach. And I offer embodied relationship mentoring. I offer somatic business coaching, and very soon, financial planning wizardry. And each of these areas, like the centering focus of each of these areas, is on intimacy, specifically on helping you cultivate secure attachment internally so that you can feel safe to receive deeper connection, more clients, increasing cash, and trusting that you can hold all of yourself with compassion, especially the parts of us that like to defend and protect from all of the abundance that they've been conditioned to experience as threats, right? So if we're talking about in the context of money and wealth, maybe you have a pattern of neglecting wealth, or you might minimize its importance in your life, and you have to learn that it's safe to care for money and to love on it. Or sometimes there may be, you may have been grown up in a house where there was hoarding, or where there was like this experience of not enoughness, and there was always sort of this grasping energy or energy of desperation. And there has to be, part of the process of healing that intimacy wound is in embracing enoughness and embracing sufficiency. Or, like Bruria was saying, like maybe you don't believe that money can come easily to you, or you grew up in a house where that belief around money, like it can't be easy, like you have a hard time feeling joy around money, or it feels like a chore, right? And allowing it to be easy is then sort of the antidote. Or you equate money with power or with corruption, or maybe you feel like you have to, you don't trust it'll come back to you if you give it away. Or, so it's like, there's all of these ways that intimacy wounds can show up in your relationship with money. And so as part of this, I wanted to share my money love story with you, both as a permission for you to fall in love with money, and also to bank my story as evidence that you can make an average coaching salary, and you can be in the maintenance phase of a chronic illness. You can experience tons of fuckery and adversity in your life and still do extraordinary things with your wealth. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Puerto Rico, similar to Bruria, in that I, grew up in sort of a lower middle class. And both my parents grew up poor. They were uneducated beyond high school, and they each had a different relationship to money. My mother was a little bit more like, oh, let's spend money on the things that we really love and that matter to us. And my father was like, we're like not giving any of it away. And so this resulted in a lot of like clash around the dinner table. And, that really turned me off as a kid. And, financial literacy was just absent from my world, right? We didn't learn it in school. Certainly didn't learn it in my family. And culturally, like growing up in a colonial context, there was this idea around like, I didn't grow up in a planning mindset, right? Like you live for today, you live right now, you could die tomorrow, live for today, which, in a way is wonderful. And another way, you don't look past 10 or 20 years. So in my head, financial planning was for American middle class white people, not me. And so my approach to money was to just trust and wing it, which thankfully worked out for me most of the time. But under the surface, what I didn't realize is that I'd made an unconscious decision to be unattached to money. And as a result, my relationship was like, it had elements of indifference, of avoidance, like, you're there, whatever, right? I don't really care. I could take you or leave you kind of thing. And that's when I got married, I was all too happy to sort of outsource the responsibility of our finances to my ex-husband, even though I was the primary and sometimes the sole breadwinner of the family. And my ex, unfortunately, had a lot of trauma around money, which together with my refusal to take responsibility resulted in like boom and bust, like a constant boom and bust cycle of our finances. We would have it, it would all like collapse. We would have it, and then like it would just sort of like drain out of us. So it wasn't until January of 2018 when I discovered that he had totally mismanaged our finances, really to the point of self-destruction, that I realized that I really needed to assert healthy control of the situation. And this was just before I graduated from my 4-year certification in somatics. And so I was already up on why this was happening. I was clear, like what intimacy wounds were running the show below the surface. And in that moment, like I promised myself, I would change my relationship with money so that my kids wouldn't inherit this trauma that they were being exposed to. So I confronted my avoidance of and fear of interacting with the systems that I had learned to distrust as a kid, like growing up in a colonial context, but also like with the stories in my family. And I essentially had to like airlift myself out of the burning building that was our relationship with our finances. So I paid off my student loans, I paid off the car, even as like through the divorce process, I was like, increasing amounts of debt were coming my way that he wouldn't and couldn't take responsibility for. And, I was just like, I just kept my head down, and I was just like, there's always enough. There's always enough. And I immersed myself in pleasure. I celebrated every little win, like really all to build my capacity to receive and hold. And I immersed myself, like I said, in the belief of having more than enough. And no matter how hard things felt sometimes, I always had enough. I always had enough. And I even invested in coaching to heal my relationship with money, to get help with that, and to get really into like the nitty gritty energetics of it. And at one pivotal moment in my healing journey, I during a meditation in the morning, my heart broke open because I realized that money was always there for me. They were like the steady thing in my life. They were loving me this whole time. And that I had sort of like in that take it or leave it kind of way, like I had not recognized the love that was there. And like, I wept because I just realized that like, I was so backed up. Like, I just felt so loved in that moment. And just a few weeks after my divorce went through, I sat down with Claire, who guided me through the process of investing at my basic level of understanding, because I was really like zero understanding. And she guided me through the process with also zero judgment, which was super important to me because I had experienced discrimination and judgment with accountants and people in the finance industry before that. And I was also holding some shame around like not having woken up and not having done this sooner in my life. So one thing that was really important to me too was like investing in areas that reflected my values of sustainability, of renewability, and environmental protection, because part of my turnoff, or part of my like avoidance of investing is like, oh, I don't want to like invest in oil and do all of that like really sleazy stuff. So knowing that my money was supporting something I valued felt really good and aligned. And knowing that somebody had my back in co-creating my desires was hella sexy. Like one of the first things Claire asked me was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh my God, are you giving me like free reign to dream? Here it is, and I just like, and she was like, okay, well, like, no dream was too big. And it was just that was so sexy to be received in my like imagination, in my visioning. And I am not done investing, but for right now, I am debt free. My money is growing as I sleep. My children are inheriting a trust and a healthy stewardship of money, which for me doesn't have a monetary value attached to it. So this is what it really is about for me, like the stewardship. the leadership, the intentionality, right? Like how we use money, because this is how corruption has been created. It's like we've misused money. So we can repair the world by really intentionally deciding how we're going to use money, right? If money is energy, how do you direct that energy towards your desires? If money is power, how do we maximize our wealth so that we can share that power? And if money is a commodity, how do you redistribute it so that it creates a future that's safe for you, your family, and your community to live in, right? How do we redistribute it? So that, I want you to bank that as evidence that it's all possible, that you don't have to make a ton of money. You can like experience all sorts of things in your life and still be planning, still co-creating with money. So with that, I want to introduce the fabulous and creative Claire Skinner, who was so instrumental in this whole process and who I'm just so grateful for. So take it away, Claire.
I am so honored and so humbled to be able to just even share the stage with the both of you amazing, amazing, amazing women. I really, really just appreciate both of you guys breaking down your story, because I think that's the most powerful thing to talk about. I believe what is a shared experience for all of us when it comes to coming from backgrounds where maybe we felt that we weren't exposed to that wealth mentality, to that abundance mentality. And I think it's so powerful for people to hear, right? That you can come from that place and come from that mindset and then make a complete shift, right? And that just comes from empowerment through education, right? Empowerment through understanding, that your circumstances really don't have to dictate your future, right? It's really just a present situation. And that can always be shifted and that can always be changed with that, again, education, that mindset, that energy. So Buriya, Isha, thank you so much for that introduction of both of you guys, just being amazing, amazing women. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys about some of those concepts that empowered all of us, right? That got all of us super fired up about finances, right? It doesn't seem like it should be sexy, but I think when I show you guys some of the information that we reviewed and, really what you can do with your money, right? Because it is sexy. Abundance to me is really not only what you can do for yourself and what you can do for your families, but it's also what you can do for your community, right? It's the things that you can invest in that you're passionate about, right? It's the dreams that you can go after to really empower people. So I'm going to start with sharing my screen and going through some of the concepts and touching on some of the things that Buriya and Isha have already kind of touched on for you guys. So bear with me 1 second while I share my screen here. Let's see. And let me do a new share, and you guys will let me know here if you are able to see it. All right.
Yes, you're great.
Good, wonderful. So you guys, obviously we're starting off talking to an amazing community. I feel super lucky to have great relationships with these two beautiful women, but what I can definitely tell you about what I know about your community just with my interactions with them is the fact that you guys you nurture relationships, right? I'm just going to start off with that. Leah I know her by her legal name. You guys know her by Buriya. She's one of my best friends, literally on the entire planet. And then she introduced me to one of the most amazing souls when it comes to Isha. And what I can tell you about both of them is that they're in love with serving people. And I feel like that's probably something that is general across the online coaching community. But what I will tell you about money and why it's really an easy transition for you is because you guys are gifted at nurturing relationships. And because you're so gifted at nurturing relationships, all you have to do is shift that same energy over to money, really, because money is a relationship, right? How you think about money, all the things that Isha was mentioning about mindsets that are really set in at the very, very beginning by how we're raised, and the things that we're taught, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. I'm sure we all have heard that, right? Without even knowing it, and not with our parents doing this necessarily with any type of intent, except for wanting to prepare us for what they feel like is the ultimate reality. You know, our spirits sometimes get dimmed when it comes to what's possible around money. So how you overcome that, how you have a mastery of money and that you actually start to learn how to actually deal with it, is to create a relationship where you acknowledge, right, any type of money wounds that might be there, whether they're conscious or unconscious, right? So I'm going to go over some of that information with you guys. But I first want to kind of talk about the fact that money really is energy, right? Money's energy, it responds to your vibration around it. And that's either abundance or it's scarcity, right? So how you think about it, how you look at it is really, really, really important. And the first thing that you guys actually want to do when it comes to vibrating abundance, even though this might seem counterintuitive, is to pay yourself first. That's whether you're making, lots and lots of money, you're living in your passion, you're living in your spirit. That's beautiful. A lot of the times when that happens, you can be in a situation where, because you feel like, hey, this is what'll always come, that you don't necessarily put yourself first, right? On the other end of that, you might feel like, hey, I'm, barely making ends meet. I only have enough to pay debts and I only have enough to really pay my obligations. So I'm going to handle that, right? Still a wrong thing to do. You always want to be in a position where you're paying yourself first, right? That is a form of self-love. And that's really what you want to do, right? Is you want to actually direct that love to yourself. When you do that first, that's going to be the first step in creating that vibration that's going to attract more abundance for you, right? Now, the next thing you want to do is to shift your mindset, right? You have to have a wealth mindset. And when wealthy people think about money, right, they think about, again, paying themselves first. We're all very familiar with Warren Buffett. He's considered to be one of the biggest investors, most successful investors in the world. And he basically had a saying to basically only save what is left after spending, right? You want to be in a position where you're putting yourself first, right? You're paying yourself a small portion. And after that, that's what you use to pay your expenses, right? That's what you use to be philanthropic with. It's basically putting on your own oxygen mask first, right? That's what you want to be in a position to do, right? Now, when we have that mindset of paying ourselves first, that's what's going to lead to financial independence. If we have a mindset of, hey, we're going to pay everyone else first, that's really going to create that scarcity. And, one of the sayings here is what we think about, we bring about, right? If we don't ever really live in that abundance, we're not going to ever really attract that abundance. And we're definitely not going to have that vibration that allows it, right? But what I'm going to show you guys is with knowledge, right? With knowledge of knowing what to actually do with your money, just really basic sound principles, you can make really huge strides with usually a lot less than you think, right? It really is just a matter of education. So that's what really excites me about this, is because of the fact that there's only 12 states that actually require, right, any type of financial education when it comes to the general, requirements for our children. And this is why this is a repetitive systemic issue, because these things could be avoided. We could have generations that come up much better, right, and that continue to actually build wealth and create wealth. But the system really is not set up for everybody, right? And what we want to do is actually really change that indifference. And how we do that is by shifting, right, that magical manifesting power that you guys have as online coaches, and actually shifting that power into great stewardship, right? Becoming great stewards for your money. So Robert Kiyosaki, you guys, he has this saying that I really love. It's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep, right? How hard it works for you and how many generations you keep it for. It's super powerful. Robert Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is one of the most powerful educational books, financial books that have ever been written. And basically what he is telling you right here is you can have, again, what I just mentioned, not maybe the largest amount of money, right? But if you know what to do with it, you can keep a lot more of it percentage wise than someone that makes a lot of their money, right? And then you can actually take a small percentage of that money. I'm going to show you guys that. And I think this is probably one of the sexiest concepts, but you can take a small amount of that money and really put that aside to create generational wealth for your children, right? Which is huge. It's all about paying it forward and making sure that the next generations are going to do better than the last. What's really sad is right now, we're a part of the first generation as, millennials, Gen Z, that are not doing as well as our parents. This is the first time that this has ever happened, right? Which is really scary. But again, these are things that can be fixed, and it's all about just education. So I'm going to start off by really kind of going over 4 cornerstones that I feel are key when it comes to having a proper foundation to actually build wealth, right? First thing is protection. A lot of the times, when people are thinking about wealth, the first thing they think about is growth, right? I want to make my money grow, and that's absolutely a part of it. But you want to make sure that you have a defensive strategy in place for 2 reasons, right? There's 2 fears that people have. The first thing is, right, more so than death, what if I live a really, really, really long time? Am I going to outlive my money that I've saved, right? So that's one thing that people are very worried about, is how am I going to maintain my independence, as I get older? How am I going to make sure that I'm not a burden on my children? If you don't have children, right, you may be wondering who's going to take care of you. So that's one fear that people have. The other fear is, well, what happens if I die too soon, right? What if you're the main breadwinner in your family? There is no one else there for your children to rely on. Have you put all the things in place to make sure that they're able to have the same lifestyle, regardless of whether you're physically there or not, right? So you have to have that defensive game plan in place. And that goes to things, literally as basic as life insurance, but that also goes to things, like long-term care. That goes to making sure that you have the proper estate preservation, right? The proper wills, the proper trust that you're protecting your wealth. Obviously, growth is huge, right? You definitely cannot save your way, right, to financial independence. The only way you can actually become financially independent is investing, right? As scary as it may seem, even today, right? The S&P 500 was down over 19% last year. So when people think about investing, a lot of the times they're like, hey, look, I'd rather just, bird in the hand, keep it in my hand and make sure that I don't lose any money. The problem is that the banks count on you to kind of have that thought process, because they pay you literally nothing, right? 0.0 nothing. And they take what you leave in the bank, and then they take that money and get 100 times, if not more, right, interest on the funds that you put with them. So what, we really do is we teach people how to use the bank for what it's there for, but really skip the bank for all intents and purposes, right? You want to have money accessible, obviously, for emergency funds in real time, a certain amount. But outside of that, you want to put your money to work for you. You don't want your bank to put your money to work for you. And that's essentially what happens, because people are just not aware of the options for how to grow their money, right? Safety. So protecting your money is extremely important, right? You definitely have different options that are available to you when it comes to how you can have your money grow and what you can do to actually protect that. So we'll go into that a little bit later. The other piece of this is tax advantages, right? You have to understand the implications of taxes on your wealth. That's one of the huge enemies to people's wealth, is taxes. And there's nothing that we can really do to get around that. But there are things that you can take advantage of, and within the tax code that the wealthy have been taking advantage of for a very long time, that they just don't make privy to the common person, right? So we'll go over some of those different things and elements that are available, tax havens that are available legally that you can also take advantage of. So first thing, you guys, because I know this is at the top of everybody's mind when it comes to wealth, is growth. And so I want to go into what I feel is probably the most important concept, and probably the one that really stuck out to me the most was, the rule of 72, which is really the rule of compound interest. And this essentially, you guys, this was called the 8th wonder of the world by Albert Einstein. He said the people that understand compound interest typically works for them, right? They don't understand it usually works against them. And it's a very, very simple concept. All you do is you take 72, divide it by the interest rate that you're earning on your money, and that tells you how long it's going to take for your money to double, right? So in this example, you guys, if you take 72 divided by 1%, it's showing you here that if you had $10,000, right, for that 10,000 to become 20,000 would take you 72 years. Now, the really sad thing about this, you guys, is that if you think about the bank, most banks don't give you anywhere close to 1%, right? Some of them are doing a little bit better because they've been raising interest rates up. But really, the average interest rate is usually around about 0.03, 0.06, right? Which means that you're talking about it taking literally hundreds of years for your money to double, right? If you left your money in the bank. So that is not a way for you to actually achieve wealth. That's not a way for your money to go to work for you. That's not a way for you to think of money in a sexy way. Where it starts to get a bit sexier, right, is when you look at the double-digit returns on the right. If I have that same $10,000 at 29 years old, right, I can see my money double literally 6 times, okay, by earning 10%. My money doubles every 7.2 years because 72 divided by 10 lets me know that it's going to double every 7.2 years. And this is really dramatic, you guys, because with the same dollar, but knowing where to put your money can be all the difference in the world to how much money you actually have later on, right? Have the same amount of earnings, but because you didn't have the education on where to put that money, you could end up literally with hundreds of thousands of dollars less. And this is what happens with people all the time because they're not aware of where they can get these double-digit returns. They're not aware of the importance of getting those double-digit returns and actually outpacing inflation, right? Typically, inflation is around 3 to 4%. So even if you were earning 4%, you're doing a little bit better, but you're really just keeping pace with inflation, right? That 40,000 pretty much would have the same buying power as 10,000, 40 years from then. But if you look at, again, getting double-digit returns, this is when your money is actually earning money for you while you're sleeping, right? This is what Isha was referring to. And this is what we want everybody to have the access to. So now, kind of going into more about how important, earning a certain amount of interest rate is. This example, this visual, you guys, is kind of showing you what it looks like at different interest rates, saving the same amount of money. So in this growth curve, right, if you looked at $178 added each month from 25 to 67, and it's showing you here at 1%, 3%, 6%, and 9%, how much you would accumulate by the time you were 67 years old. Right now, you're talking about the difference of $111,434 at 1% versus you earning 9% and having $1 million. Now, obviously, if you can see that difference, the question is, why would anybody leave large amounts of money in a place where they, would earn 1%? The problem is that it literally happens every single day, you guys. There is over $10 trillion in money market accounts, right? In checking accounts and savings accounts. The banks are betting on the fact that people remain ignorant to this. Right? 72 divided by 1 was 72 years to double, but this is what I was mentioning. Look at what these banks pay. Literally nothing, right? So they're taking your money, betting on the fact that you have no idea what to do with it. You have that safety. You're like, okay, I know I'm not going to lose money, out in the markets. But the thing is, you have to think about the fact that the wealthiest people in the world have been investing their money in the markets despite all of the ups and downs. And the reason is because, again, there's no way that you can have financial independence getting these types of returns on your funds, right? The difference between, saving your money and actually earning compound interest on your money is really shown in this example. If you opened up an account, and you said, hey, I'm going to save $500 a month, and you do that for 45 years, right? In the bank, you would have $270,500. And some people might feel really good about that, but good is relative, right? So if you look at what you could actually have with that same amount of savings, but now actually having 9% compound interest added to that, you're talking about you would have literally $3.7 million. That's $3,460,208 in interest. That's your money going to work for you. 13 times the amount you would actually put in, which is unbelievable. But again, I sit with people every day, you guys, and I can't tell you how many people have tons and tons of money just in the bank where it could be working for them, right? And they could be seeing the sexy side of money, because to me, that compound interest is the sexy side of money. So now I'm going to talk to you guys a bit about, just time value, because what really makes money work for you, obviously, is time, right? You need that to work for you. You need the high interest rates. But a lot of the times people just don't have that muscle where they're patient, right? Where they're saving regularly, where they're again doing this type of constant self-love. The thing is, you want to take advantage of time, but you also want to take advantage of, dollar cost averaging, meaning that you're saving the same amount every single month and really building that muscle. And what happens a lot of the times are people will pay everyone else again but themselves. And then when they really start to think about it, it becomes so much harder for them to achieve a goal that they have, right? Now, there's no better time to start, obviously, than today, right? If you haven't started. But just to illustrate to you guys how much harder it gets just by waiting, 5 years. 20 years old, right? You save $113 a month. By the time you're 67, you would hit that $1 million goal if $1 million was your goal, right? You just wait, literally 10 years later, right? 30 years old, you're now at 282. That doesn't seem so bad, right? But then when you look waiting 10 more years, now you're going to have to save $731 a month. And then if you're waiting even later than that, you're talking about now having to save 5 figures a month to hit $1 million. And what most people don't realize is that $1 million is not really going to fund most people's retirement, right? A really quick formula, to kind of think about how much it's going to take for you to really need to save is, what are you going to need to have annually, right? In order for you to feel like you're going to have a great retirement. If you take that annual amount and you divide that by, let's say, 6% or 7%, that's around the most that you should be pulling from that full lump sum. That tells you how much you're going to need to have. And for most people, that number is usually around 3 to 4 million, right? So you really want to put yourself in a position where you can, double these numbers, triple these numbers, even quadruple them if you can. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. So questions now are, well, what do I do when the market's down, right? When I lost 19.5% and everything is kind of crashing, that's where we come in, is we help you find the bright spots in the market, right? Because you hear that saying that even, when the market's down, somebody's getting rich. And those people that are getting rich know where to put the money, right? And this is where they're putting the money. They're looking for the bright spots in the market. So this is data, you guys, literally from the 16th of last month. And you could see on the 16th of last month that everything in the peach orange color here, down. Gold down, bonds down, pretty much like stocks, which was insane, right? Bitcoin, of course, was down over 60%. The bright spots in the market right here at the top in the blue, commodities, right? That's a very broad term. But commodities could literally be anything from agriculture to metals. It could be oil. It could be, energy, usually things that are tangible. The dollar, of course, was up because interest rates kept going up. Oil alone as an asset class, 2.8%. So those were the bright areas in the market, right? There typically always are, but you have to know where to look for them. So this is just an example, you guys, of one company that we work with. There's a whole page, if you look in this year-to-date column, this YP column, that had a whole page of positive returns, right? Now, these are always based upon what's appropriate for you, and what's appropriate for you may have nothing at all to do with what is, feasible as far as your risk capacity. What's appropriate for you may not be an energy fund, right? we offer all different types when it comes to, environmental, social, and governance investing. But what I wanted to just illustrate to you here is the fact that there is a lot of money to be made, right? When it comes, even in down markets, there's always a bright spot. So it's just finding out where those bright spots are. And that's what we can help you do with all different types of strategies. I'm going to show you guys an example here. I'm going to actually kind of pull this one up. And this is really just showing you guys the power of compound interest and what it could really look like for you using the power of time. So in this example, right, this is a client where she, 43 years old, right, she had $75,000 literally sitting right in the bank. And she knew that she wanted to do something with it, just wasn't really sure where to put it. So we went over some different options and she had different goals in mind. But what we kind of will illustrate to you is she's going to take this $75,933. She's going to put this in one of the funds that we suggested here for her. She's going to save another $750 a month on top of that. And really what she was doing is redirecting what she was already saving into the bank, into this account. And then what I had her doing, because she wanted to purchase a home in another 2 years, and she wanted to actually use that as a rental property, I want to show her withdrawing $55,000 for that home down payment. I'm going to also show her pulling out another $10,000 in year 4. She wanted to use that for a business investment. And then in year 8, she knew that she wanted to take a 4-month trip. And she said that was going to cost her probably around $15,000 for her 50th birthday. So I'm using the historical returns, you guys, of the S&P 500. I'm not going to show you any crazy returns like the ones that are available, right, that were on the last page. I'm just going to show you essentially what the market did from the period of 1967 to 2022. So on this page, you can see here at the top, $75,933 went in, right? And then $9,000 a year is $750 a month. So she does that here. And at the beginning of year 4, she pulls out that $55,000. And you can see here that she's earning dividends, which is also sexy, right? That's the money that you didn't have to work for, but you had it invested with companies and they're paying you basically a portion of those profits. And then you have also your shares, right? The growth. So even after pulling out $55,000, she still had $52,478. She continues to invest for another couple of years, that same $750 a month, and then she pulls out $10,000. And you can see here that she just continues to invest. $15,000 at the age of 50, she pulls out, and she has $110,937 even after pulling out here. A total of what this is, $65,000, $75,000, $80,000. So you really start to see these numbers get really awesome right around the time period here that she turned 65 years old. And in this illustration, that is in the year 1992. That's when she starts to pull money out. This is when it gets awesome, is because now everything she's done to pay herself is going to pay her back in multiples. So she's put in over that time period of 43, you guys, to 65, $289,683. And you can see here, by pulling out 7% of the year in value, she ends up pulling out over $4.3 million. That's at 11.49%, you guys, right? That's what, the economy did. The reason I really love to show it this way is because I love to show that even with the market volatility, right, this is what scares a lot of people. And I'm going to show you an example. If you look here at 2000, right? In 1999, she had $3.2 million. But we know that there was the dot-com crash, 2000, 2001, 2002, that 3.2 went to 1.8, but she's still pulling out money. She's still fine. Then you guys, when we get down to 2008, you see again that she lost almost $1 million, but she's still pulling out money. She's still fine, and then the market recovers as it always does. And then here, right, we see the correction that we're recently now in the middle of. That 3.1 million at 2021 goes down to 2.5. The point is, you guys, is that she put in 289, she's pulled out 4.3. And she's done that for over 31 years. And by the time she would hit the age of 96, she would still have $2.5 million. So this is really another part of the things that we do to help kind of shape your relationship with money, is to take the fear out of it, right? There's a lot of fear around investing because it can be scary, but really you don't want to try to time the market, right? You really want to spend time in the market, and over long periods of time, like what I'm showing you, you're always going to end up winning, right? It just matters, again, what's important to you when it comes to your values, and we help you find those places to put that money. All right, so kind of going into the next thing, impact of losses, right? When we're talking about short-term investing, this is very important. Over the long term, as I mentioned, you're always going to win. But when you're talking about investing funds, but needing to access it, within 5 years or less, you really have to be cognizant of where you put your money, because it takes a lot to actually get back the money you lost, right? So a lot of the times when I, sit down with someone and I say, hey, look, you have $100, right, in the market, and you lose half of it, how much do you have to get back, right? How much do you have to earn in order to get back where you were? And they say, hey, well, if I lost half, then, if I basically get another 50% back, I should be back where I am. And that's not how it works, unfortunately, right? That $50 is what basically 50% of that would get you up to 75. You would literally need to get 100% gain to end right back up where you were. Right. So that's why it becomes very important to be a lot more conservative for things that you do need in the shorter term. But there are places that you can put your money and have it be protected, right, from losses, the impact of losses. So this is where we kind of talk about growth still, but actually where your money is growing. And people are very aware of the first two places. Fixed accounts we know about, right? We know about CDs, we know about checking accounts, we know about bank accounts. We know about getting, anywhere from 0.03 to 4%, 5% if we're lucky. We also know about variable, right? We know that there is that up and down volatility. So you have access to those high gains, but you also have, exposure to deep losses. What a lot of people are not aware of is index, right? This is a hybrid between these two, where you can actually have your money have access to gains that mirror the market, but because they're not fully invested in the market, you don't actually have to feel any of the losses. And a lot of the time when I first saw this, I'm like, well, how number one, does that exist, and how does it make sense for a company, right? And the way it works is typically what these companies will do is they'll give you a cap. They'll say, hey, we're going to allow you to have a certain amount of those gains. We're not going to give you all of them, but when the market drops, we're going to protect you and lock in those gains, right? Keep you at a floor of 0 so that you don't lose anything. And these are really, really amazing accounts because they give you access to some pretty amazing gains. They're still double-digit returns that you have access to, right? And even with some of the newer accounts, they give you uncapped gains and they just take a portion off the top of it, right? So these are things that a lot of times people just have no idea even exist. And this can have a huge impact on the wealth that you accumulate. So I'm going to show you an example of one of these accounts and what it could look like with just $25,000, you guys. So this is an example of a 35-year-old taking $25,000, putting it within a fixed indexed annuity. So meaning that they get access to market gains and the double-digit returns, but they're completely protected from market losses. Now, by the time she hits retirement age, right? So you can first access these accounts at 59 and a half, right? These annuities. So these are meant to be long-term investment strategies, tax-deferred strategies where you take full advantage of compounding of non-taxed money, right? But by the time she actually would hit 65 years old, which is the average retirement age, her $25,000 turned into $2.5 million. How did it do that? Because even with this being an indexed account where she's not exposed to any market losses, the historical returns of this particular account is 16.84%. Amazing, amazing, amazing growth, right? Now, again, not always appropriate for people that, number one, don't have enough liquid funds that they, could actually let that sit without touching it, right? But this is meant to be long-term. These are the types of strategies that do exist that a lot of people, again, like I said, are not aware of. So definitely important when it comes to actually building wealth over the long term. Now, we talk about taxes, right, being one of the enemies to wealth. And there are different ways that you can be taxed, right? These 3 different ways. It can be taxed now. Those are usually what I call like the liquid lifestyle accounts, where you can access this money in real time. And that's usually, savings, checking accounts, CDs, money markets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, your Bitcoins. These are all accounts where you either have access to the money in real time, or you have access to the money within like 7 business days, if it's stocks or bonds or mutual funds. And then CDs, some of the time you will actually have those in within 3 to 5 years, but you leave them in longer so that you can get a higher interest rate than what you would get at the bank, right? The point of the matter here is all of these accounts, they call them tax me now, tax me always, because you're literally going to pay capital gains tax on any growth in those accounts forever, indefinitely, right? And if you look how that impacts your wealth, this example shows you here, just very simply, if you took $1, you doubled it every 20 years without it being taxed, right? By the end of that 20 years, compound interest literally would turn that into $1,048,576. But if you tax that every single time at 33%, the only thing you would have left over is actually $28,000. It's like a little over $28,400. That's how taxes have a huge impact on the wealth that you accumulate. So what we try to do is really shift people into these other 2 areas, right? You want to keep some of it in the tax me now because you have to have some liquid funds available. But when it comes to longer term strategies, you really want compound interest to be able to go to work for you. And you're either going to do that, right, in a way where you're kind of deferring your taxes, right, to a later date. This is really the tax deferred area. These are where you're going to find most of your retirement accounts, your employee retirement accounts like 401ks, 403bs, your traditional IRAs, your SEPs, annuities also are tax deferred, your pensions, right? So you have definite rules with this. You can't touch the money until 59 and a half. They actually just raised the required minimum distribution age to 73 this year. So at 73 years old, the IRS really doesn't care if you want to keep your money in there and bake. They say, hey, look, you owe us money. You have to pay us money. And if you don't pay us money at 73, not only are you going to pay those taxes anyway, we're also going to penalize you 50%, right? So they get really, really aggressive about it. But then, there's a lot of limits too around how much they actually will allow you a lot of the times to save into these accounts, right? There's income limits when it comes to, the traditional IRA. They just raised that up to $6,500 this year. For people under the age of 50, over the age of 50, it's $7,500. So there's limitations. The best place, right, if you can put your money in this area is the tax me never or the tax advantaged. And there's not a whole lot of accounts that fall into this, but essentially they say tax me never, although you do pay tax when you earn the money, but that's the only time you pay it. Once that money goes into these accounts, that money gets to grow tax-free, you get to access it tax-free. And that's really what you want is Uncle Sam not touching any of your money, right? You're either typically going to be paying 15% in this tax me now area, right, to Uncle Sam. In the middle area, that's usually going to be anywhere from like 22% to upwards of 37%, depending on your income tax bracket. Over here, it's 0% that you pay to them, right? So obviously beautiful, beautiful funds. The Roth IRA is an amazing one to actually be invested in if you qualify for it. College 529 plans, also amazing, right? Municipal bonds. So the government will allow you to basically not pay taxes to them if you let them borrow money, right? And then there's universal life insurance or life insurance, cash value life insurance in general, which most people are not aware of. And the reason why this is one of the well-kept secrets is because wealthy people have been using life insurance for years, generations, basically, because this is a place where you can use a tax shelter, where you can have permanent life insurance, use that as obviously a life insurance vehicle, but most of them are using it for investment grade purposes, meaning that they are getting tax-free retirement distributions out of their life insurance policies. They also can pull out college funds for this. They can get estate taxes paid by this tax-free. The death benefit is tax-free. And you don't have any limitations on this. So you don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half to access the money. There's no required minimum distributions on the money. There's none of the limitations that you have with a lot of these other accounts. And most people have no idea. Most people actually look at life insurance and turn their nose up at it because they think, hey, if I die, someone else gets paid, right? Which is a responsible thing, obviously, if you are responsible for children and you have, people that you need to actually take care of. But when you think about the other benefits of what you can actually use life insurance for, it's far more powerful on that side to use it for all of those tax-free benefits without restriction. So that's definitely something, that people have been taking advantage of for a long time and really using it as a supplemental retirement account. If you compare it, and this chart does a great job of comparing, people actually using mutual funds or 401ks or IRAs to save their retirement funds in versus an index universal life insurance policy. And it really shows you from the year 1997 to 2016, if you had your money basically in the markets, because these are variable accounts, right? You would be exposed to all sorts of gains, but also all sorts of losses. So if you put $100,000 in, right, over that time period, you would end up with $304,718.32 before tax. After paying 30% tax, though, you have $213,302. Whereas if you look at the index universal life, how that will perform, you don't get all of the gains, right? In this example, they're giving you up to 15% of the gains. But because this is an indexed account, if you remember, again, this is where you have that floor. In this particular floor, it was actually 0.75%. So even when there were losses, they actually had a small gain. And you could see here that because they never felt the exposure of those losses and ever had to just kind of went up as a stair step for them, they ended up at $514,780.40. And that's really where it ended up because it's a tax-free account. So when you compare these two, right? And this is, again, what they offer with employers. This is, again, common knowledge for most people, mutual funds, 401ks, IRAs. What's not common knowledge for most people is how you can use life insurance as a strategy for retirement and actually get tax-free retirement. There's only two places that you can save for retirement and have access to tax-free funds, and that's the Roth IRA or cash value life insurance. And unfortunately, most people only know about one of them, right? So this goes back to, again, being a steward, right? Once you have that money, you master that money, you hold it, you steward it, you manage it, and that's where you get empowerment. That's where you get freedom, right? People who save, they invest for the future, they feel deeper self-confidence and peace of mind than all of their peers. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to pause here because I do know that that was quite a bit of information, but this is just an example, you guys, of really how powerful information can be for you and what you can do with such a small amount. I'm going to show you one last thing that I think is extremely powerful when it comes to what you can do for your children. The reason this is so important is because when you talk about the time value of money, if you actually take advantage of a baby being born and actually having probably 50, 60 years until they need to touch that money, you can invest very tiny amounts and have that grow into something unbelievable. And what I'm going to show you guys, and there's so many different ways that you could set this up, but this is, again, just an illustration. And I'm going to show you two different ways. You take a newborn baby, you do an initial investment of $2,500 in the first year. And then for the next 4 years, you just did $250 a month and you just stopped after that. Look at what this grows to. By the time that child would be 67 years old, right, that investment would have turned into 8.625 million based upon the historical returns of the S&P 500. This again is based on 11.54% using historical returns. So by the time that child is 67 years old, they're pulling out $464,482, and that number is increasing. And those funds are still compounding. And this is how you create generational wealth for your child. And how you make sure that they don't use that money is by putting it inside of a trust like Isha did for her children, right? That's how you do it. So it doesn't take large lump sums amounts, right? You can say, hey, I want to leave my children, $20 million, and you can do it the hard way, or you can do it the smart way and do it when they're when they're newborns, which is exactly how people create trust fund babies. And they do it this easy way. So an investment of $14,750, right? So you're literally doing $2,500 and then $250 a month for 4 years. And that turned into withdrawals of almost $28 million, right? And then literally at the end, still having $22 million. That's how you create real wealth. Again, most people just don't know. They don't know to do that and take those actions at that time. And if you have even $13,000, just lump sum. And this is something that you can do crowd sharing for, right? Say, hey, look, I'm going to have a baby shower. And instead of you guys buying gifts, I would really love to set my child up with just a small investment in their future, right? $13,000 going in when that baby's born, because it's all front loaded and it's lump sum done at the very beginning. This child actually ends up with a few million more, right? $200,000 more pulled out at the very beginning. And then if you look here, they pull out $10 million more because it was front loaded, and end up with $29,720 and $351 left over, even into like their late 90s. This is showing you again how you create generational wealth. So I'm going to end with that, because to me, again, this is why working with a financial planner, having a comprehensive financial strategy is extremely important. Forbes said here that people who actually have the comprehensive plans that we put together for people end up with 250% more in retirement. And I think we've kind of proven that point with just the education, and then actually, implementing that education, right? Using that for yourself, building that wealth for yourself, for your children, creating legacy is really what changes futures for people. And this is an example, just a very small example of the types of comprehensive strategies we put for people. We break out those 3 buckets again, showing you how we tax diversify you, showing you how we get you, from where you are to retirement and all the way in between. You would receive 2 different reports. One report would be a financial needs analysis going through these 6 areas on the left, right? Cash flow, debt management, showing you how to effectively get out of debt. And there's so many different ways to do it. Emergency fund, determining what's appropriate for you to make sure you're prepared for emergencies, that you have a defensive strategy in place, that we're building wealth in all the areas that we can and helping you outpace inflation and reduce taxes, and then making sure that you're preserving every single thing that you've worked hard for. So we look at all 6 of those areas, and then we show you within the recommendations exactly how you take your funds from where they are and grow them to where they need to be to hit those goals. So I really hope that you guys got a lot of information that you found valuable. I'm going to stop my share and give it right back over to Leah and Maria, so that way we could actually go through some questions and answers.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like bursting through the screen of everything you're saying. I'm like, this is so like, it's hot. I'm like turned on right now. Like, especially like 29 million. Yes, please. I will love to leave that for my children. And it's so crazy how little it takes. It's like so accessible to the average person. And it's just a matter of knowing about it. And I think that is why knowledge is so powerful. However, it is only powerful when it's applied, right? Because we have all this information, but if we don't do anything with it, then it's just information. And so we are going to do the Q&A in a moment, but before we do, I just wanted to extend this invitation to all of you to actually book a complimentary strategy with someone from our team. It may be Claire, it may not, depends on really what your goals are, because we have a whole team of specialists. Of course, we just brought Claire because she's the best, but based on your specific goals and areas of specialty, there might be another advisor on our team who's actually more suited to support you. So we have a link that I'm going to drop in the chat right now, which is a Google Doc form. And this is our financial strategy intake form. And so if you are interested, by the way, in case I didn't mention, this is completely free. This is completely complimentary. There's no catch. We're not like, okay, come sit down with us and then we're going to give you the fee. It's like free from beginning to end, because we really, really believe in the mission of No Family Left Behind. A huge part of our firm's sort of philosophy, mission, crusade, if you will, is to uplift and empower families from all walks of life, whether you're already a trust fund millionaire or you're starting from literally zero and you need someone to hold your hand. And it's funny because I actually joined the gym yesterday for the first time in like 3 years. And I was in a bit of a COVID hibernation, and I finally felt ready to start moving again. And I had a session this morning with the personal trainer at the gym, and he was asking me what my goals were and what I wanted to do. And I noticed that just like having his presence and his attunement and support made the whole experience of going back to the gym, which can be a very intimidating and like very overwhelming place, feel so much more like gentle on my system. And it made me feel way less overwhelmed, way less intimidated. And he's ushering me, like he's holding the space for me now. And we're going to just go one step at a time, like little by little. We're not going to go running into the gym doing some kind of crazy workout. I don't even have to figure anything out. I don't have to literally think. All I have to do is show up, and I'm entrusting him because he has the expertise, he has the training, he understands what my goals are, to come up with a plan that's going to help me get to the next level with my health. And so I thought of that story because it's so similar to working with a financial advisor. A lot of times, I don't know about for you, but I have had resistance and I procrastinated, booking a meeting because I felt like, oh, all my money stuff's going to come up, all my shadows, all my wounds, I'm going to be exposed, and it can be overwhelming. And so what I want to just invite you all to feel and experience is safety in this experience, safety in your body, and trust that, whatever advisor that you will get paired with, this is their zone of genius. This is where they're trained to hold you. And you don't have to know everything, and you don't have to figure everything out right away. You just have to take the first step. And as you all got to see with some of the numbers that Claire shared today, like it doesn't have to take a lot to make a huge, massive transformation for yourself, for your children, for the legacy of your entire lineage. So I really hope you all take advantage of it, because there's really nothing to lose but a whole lot to gain. So that is in the chat. And once we receive that back from you, someone from our team will be in touch with you within 48 hours. So, we will find out, we'll probably ask you just a few times that are available for you on your schedule, and we'll book it. We'll book the call over Zoom so you can get the process going. So that's our offer for all of you to take control and feel empowered around your finances. So I wanted to go over some of the questions for you, Claire. One of them had to leave, but I let them know we would still ask, and so they could catch it in the replay. And there were maybe some questions in the chat. So if you had a question that you put in the chat, if you don't mind moving it over to the Q&A box so that we can make sure to get to it. So the first question is from Eve, and Eve is asking, if you're in your 50s, have insufficient retirement savings or investments, I have retirement funds, but not enough, and can't afford to save $38.80 per month. What do you do? What's your second best move?
So this is what I actually really, really, really love about what we do. First of all, I think Maria did an amazing job really kind of going over the fact that we don't have any limitations with anybody that we work with at all when it comes to where you're starting. A lot of financial firms do where they won't have a conversation with you unless you have, a certain net worth or you make a certain income. That's not what we do at all. We meet you exactly where you're at. We show you different options for how to get there. But not only that, we're in a very unique position where, because we're such a huge firm on education and training people and our crusade of No Family Left Behind, that we have so many of our clients that actually work with us, even if it's just on a referral partner basis, to get an additional stream of income. And so if income is something that you're looking to have, and you have other passions and things that you enjoy doing and don't see yourself necessarily being, client facing in this position to do it, but you enjoy the information and it's vital and important, you literally can get an insurance license. Once you have that insurance license, you're affiliated with our firm and you go through our background checks because it is a very highly regulated industry, then you're in a position where you can get compensated at 50% on whatever or whoever you refer that actually would opt for any types of investments, any types of protections. So we have ways of helping you not only design and help you with what you've currently acquired, and meeting you where you're at. If it really is a cash flow situation, we can definitely actually help you earn additional income. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is we can really show you where to start, right? Where that you can actually increase those funds as you can and actually still hit some very amazing goals. I know when you think about, hey, I haven't really saved as much as I want to save, I'm not in a position maybe to put in larger numbers, you may wonder if it's worth it. Very small amounts of money can make a very big difference if you have the right people on your side, making sure that your money is going to work for you in the way that it should be going to work for you, right? So our job is to make sure that we're getting the best rate of return on your money in the best possible way that we can. So I would absolutely say in those situations to, take advantage of having a look at your overall comprehensive, portfolio, what it would actually take to kind of hit some of the goals that you need. And like I said, if it's a cash flow issue, this is really great for people, that are maybe looking at second careers. They've already had careers. They don't necessarily want to go back to work, but they want another stream of income. This is an amazing way for you to be able to get a great stream of income and not really invest a lot of time or energy into actually getting the benefits that you would need.
Amazing. Yes. And I just actually popped in the chat the link to apply. If that is someone, if you are in that position where really your biggest challenge at this moment is actually cash flow, I just posted the link in the chat to apply to be an affiliate referral partner with us. And so, we obviously have to go through our due diligence and there are background tests and things like that because we are in the literally most regulated industry. But if it feels like a fit and you resonate with our mission, then that is an absolutely wonderful way that you could create a completely additional stream of passive income. So I love affiliate relationships. I'm a big fan. Those of you who know me know I don't stop talking about them. Okay, so another question we have. Oh, Isha, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, somebody had asked a question in the chat that I said that I would sort of move to the Q&A. It was like somebody in their 50s saying like, yeah, I haven't been doing anything up to my 50s. I want to share, like, I am 49 years old, so I am almost 50. I am just getting started with this. And I am retiring, like, based on what I have now. Like I said, I'm not done investing, but right now, like, I have like $500,000. Like in the next 20 years, $500,000 is waiting for me. So there's still so much you can do within that short period of time.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. Like the power of time for our money is really something hard to believe, like how powerful compound interest really is, even with just a little time. So yeah, and that's where I would just really recommend to book a strategy, because you will get hands-on individualized attention to literally look at all of your numbers, exactly where you're at, with a fine-tooth comb, but in a safe, loving space, and exactly let the advisor know, like, what are these goals? At what age do you want to have the opportunity to have the option to stop working? And that's literally what they're there to do. So yeah. Okay, so we have another question, which was, can you easily move money from a 401k to one of the indexed accounts you mentioned?
So this is actually a really great question. So I'm going to answer this in two ways. So there are sometimes, and it really kind of depends on your employer, if they allow what's called an in-service rollover. If they do, and it is rare, I will tell you, it's rare before the age of 55 that they will allow you to do an in-service rollover while you're there. However, what I will tell you is that new laws just went into effect. Secure 2.0 literally just actually is going into effect this year. And they're going to open it up to be able to actually have annuities be a part of 401k investments. And annuities are one of those vehicles that can be either fixed, variable, or indexed. So that's definitely something to be looking out for when it comes to the investment options that are going to open up for your 401k. But definitely at the age of 55, like I said, is usually when people do have that option, usually within that 5 to 10 year window, to take whatever funds they've accumulated with their employer and actually move it over. But what I will kind of tell you guys too, another thing that we do for people all the time, just as another service, is we actually usually have the opportunity to be able to tap into your 401k while you're still at work, and offer you more investment options through our wealth management firm, and actually be able to get people usually about 3 to 4% higher returns than what they're getting from their 401k. And that sounds like a very small amount, but it ends up being over time, again, as you guys saw, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's also an option if you're not able to move it into an indexed account, or they're not offering that strategy. There's still ways that we can help you maximize the wealth that you actually are building at your employer.
Yeah, that chart you showed us where it was just the difference of, interest rate was like, whoa, mind blowing. Yeah. So yeah, even just a few percentage points is like hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. So definitely even worth, meeting with someone just to look at that. If you have a 401k, to see, could the account that you already currently have be making way more money for you? So that's a really great point. Okay. We have another, this is more of a comment than a question, but I'm going to share it in case you want to respond to this, Claire. So Yara is saying, I'm starting from zero, healing money wounds, small business owner, private practitioner, almost 8-year-old daughter, and I have nothing to keep her or myself and loved ones safe. I feel overwhelmed with 529s, custodial IRAs. I need handholding and guidance because I am open to receive.
I love that. And that's literally what I do and what I get excited and nerd out about every day. So I'm literally happy to hold your hand and explain any financial instrument that you've ever had questions about, because it can be very intimidating, because there's a lot. And I always pre-frame people with that this is meant to be a piece by piece thing, right? And we don't want to move forward with anything that you don't, number one, feel like you have a really good understanding of, but that you don't feel 100% comfortable with, right? So just to have the conversation cost you nothing. I'd be happy to give you an education about any financial instrument that just has always seemed overwhelming to you, and really give you whatever guidance that you need, right? You're starting from zero is not a problem. That's literally where the majority of our clients are starting from. And that's what we love to do, because you can make such a huge impact, with what your future looks like wherever you're starting from. So I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. And I love the fact that you're working on healing money wounds.
Yeah, and thank you for your sharing your vulnerability with us, because I would imagine you're not the only one on this call who feels that way. we've all, I think most of us have felt that way at least one point in time. So you're in great company, Yara. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. We have another question. I'm going to try to get this correctly from Bulaong. Please, apologies in advance if I didn't say that right. And they are asking, do you recommend folks only have one retirement account? I have a couple from different jobs and one I opened as a rollover.
Got it. Okay. So that, that can be a different answer, because I am all about diversification, but it may not be necessary for you to have different accounts within the same tax strategy. So what I mean by that is, hey, if you have a Roth IRA and then you have a 401k or a Roth IRA, and maybe you had a SEP, that could be great, because now you're tax diversified and you have a tax advantage strategy where you're going to pull money out tax free. And then you're also taking advantage of tax deferral and maybe getting some tax cuts, right? So then that could be a great thing. But it may be that if you have multiple strategies or multiple retirement accounts within the same strategy, that you can consolidate them, right? And actually have that all under, one roof, easier to kind of keep track of, one thing to manage. And a lot of the times when you have, retirement accounts that you left over from different jobs, that's a perfect opportunity, right? For you to actually be able to take that money and put it into an index strategy if you don't currently have it. Because the only times typically that you can do that is usually when you're, retiring from work, or you're leaving that job, right? So because you have, maybe an account that you've had from a different job, that gives you a way to be able to take that money, put it into an account that's going to be protected and where it won't be exposed to market losses, but actually have access to growth, right? So we would, again, be happy to look at what your portfolio looks like to see if consolidation makes sense, or if it makes sense for you to stay diversified as you are.
I love it. Thank you so much for that, Claire. And yeah, I that's all the questions we have at this moment. So I just want to, first of all, thank you all for joining us and for opening your hearts and for being open to learn something new, having the bravery to learn something new, especially a topic that can be very overwhelming and intimidating. And yeah, we hope to hear from you. We have the links in the chat, both for, financial strategy, as well as if you're interested in additional income. That's definitely something that we would love to talk to you about as well. And yeah, thank you for being in the Energy Live. And do either of you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for people who are on here and contributing the energy. It's just so much more fun when there's like a group of people. And so just thank you for your time, the investment of your time here.
Yeah.
It made all the difference.
Yes, absolutely. Isha expressed my sentiments 100%. It's just amazing energy. And it's always good to have this type of dialogue about it, right? I feel when people learn, right, it multiplies, it ripples, and that information goes out, and that's what it's really all about. The more people that know, the better that they do, and it's the best thing for everyone. So thank you so much.
Yay. All right. Well, sending so much love to you all for a wonderful rest of your Thursday, to a happy 2023. And we look forward to hopefully being in touch with all of you soon. So thank you all. I'll play a little Cardi B to see us out.
Look, my bitches all bad, my niggas all real. I ride and dick. So big tall hills, big fat checks, big large bills, run out flip like 10 car wheels. Cold ass bitch, I give raw chills. 10 different looks and my looks so kill. I kiss him in the mouth, I feel all grills. Heat in the car, that's wheels on wheels. Woo! I was born to flex, yes. Diamonds on my neck. I like boarding jets, I like more than sex. But nothing in this world that I like more than checks. Money. All I really wanna see is the money. I don't really need a D, I need the money. All a bad bitch need is the money. I got bands in the coop, bustin' out the roof. I got bands in the coop. Touch me, I'll shoot. Bow, shake a little ass. Money. You get a little bag and take it to the store. Money. Get a little cash. Money. You shake it real fast, you get a little more. Money. I got bands in the coop, bustin' out the roof. I got bands in the coop, bustin' out I need a jet, shit. I need room for my legs. I got a baby, I need some money, yeah. I need teeth for my egg. All y'all bitches in trouble. Bring brass knuckles to scuffle. I heard that Cardi went pop, yeah. I did go pop, pop. That's me busting that bubble. I'm the Sonny with the drip, baby mommy with the clip. Walk out bodies with a bitch. Bring a thotty to the whip. Is she fine or she thick? God damn, walking past the mirror. Ooh, damn I'm fine. Let a bitch try me. Boom, hammer time. I was born to flex. Diamonds on my neck. I like boarding jets. I like more than sex. But nothing in this world that I like more than checks. All I really wanna see is the. I don't really need a D, I need the. All a bad bitch need is the. I got bands in the coop, bustin' out the roof. I got bands in the coop. Touch me, I'll shoot. Bow, shake a little ass.
Awesome. I just had to see us off like that because that was just way too much fun. But yeah, we'll close it out for now. Have an amazing, amazing day, everyone. And we will talk to you all soon.